Well, it's a great pleasure right now to be joined by the former Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu, who's joining us here on RT, and it's so good of you to join us and share some of your time with us here. Thank you very much for your time today.
Most welcome. Best greetings to Moscow.
It's very, very good to have you with us here on RT. I wanted to ask you, if I may, about one of the most severe hotspots in the world today, the continued war on Gaza. In the past 24 hours, the Turkish president has described the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as worse than Hitler. And then under your leadership, sir, a letter was written accusing Israel of, quote, genocidal onslaught regarding the war on Gaza. Can you please tell me how both the Turkish president and you yourself have come to these conclusions?
First of all, let me explain about our initiative. After the war on Gaza and the destruction of hospitals, refugee camps, killing children, women, civilians, some leading politicians and intellectuals all around the world, from 40 different countries, from almost all religions, all ethnic groups, races, continents, colors, we came together. Former prime ministers, former UN advisors, rapporteurs, several former UN officials, former Nobel Prize winner, Peace Prize winner, and several activists and human rights defenders. We came together through Zoom. The first question was, what is the situation on Gaza? How can we describe it? We had a lengthy discussion. At the end, we agreed on defining it as a genocide. Why? Because several crimes against humanity have been committed by Israeli army, Israeli forces, and they did not respect at all to any humanitarian norm, such as not to attack hospitals or any international law. International war law, even respecting civilian places, religious sites, hospitals, refugee camps, children, women. What is going on in Gaza, from this perspective, is worse than the situation of many issues like what happened in Stalingrad or Leningrad. From the perspective of international law, UN Security Council Resolution 242 clearly identifies Gaza and West Bank as Palestinian land and asks Israel to withdraw all the forces from these territories. That was year 1967. From that time until now, basic human rights of Palestinians have not been respected. This is not a political accusation. This is based on the basic fact of the ground. And what we called after this definition, we called UN offices, UN organs like UNICEF to protect children. And we asked all governments, especially US and UK, which declared unconditional support to Israel, we asked them to respect international law, not to help genocide on the ground.
But you talk about the respect of international law, sir, and how this two-state solution has been discussed for so many years at the United Nations. When you talk about the UN being a global governing body, why is it that the UN is apparently ineffective in helping the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian state?
This is because of UN mechanisms. 3 years ago, I published a book on world order published by Cambridge University Press. Because of the structure of UN cannot take any decision without P5 states agrees on this issue. Assume that all the rest 190 countries agreed on one issue. Only one country, such as US, rejects this proposal.
But why is that, sir? I'm sorry, I do apologize for interrupting you, but why is it that the United States consistently votes against the UN resolutions that are calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza? Because it's actions from Washington that it's causing concern around the world, it's causing confusion. Why is Washington apparently so anti-peace and pro-war in Gaza. I mean, it's almost like an anti-human agenda, frankly.
When we look at the Wilson principles after the First World War, based on Wilson principles, which is one of the main documents of American political and diplomatic history, Palestinians have the right to have their own state. Many U.S. politicians do not see Israel as an ordinary state like other states. I think the problem is the abnormality of the Israeli state as some sort of like supra-state. Many American high-level politicians, in order to win elections or in order to have some sort of influence in American economic and political circles, they need support of Jewish lobby. So Israel is not a foreign issue for Americans. It is a domestic issue, and there is a domestic power circle inside U.S. Pro-Israeli statement is a must. This is the basic dilemma of UN today. They implement different criteria for different issues.
Yep.
On some subjects, they defend UN basic principles of territorial integrity or basic human rights when they want to do so. But on Israel, Israel is exceptional.
We like to hear that from New York, don't we? They like to talk about the rules-based international order. They like to talk about exceptional countries like the United States and like you said, Israel as well. But it is bizarre to see because we're talking genocide, we're talking war crimes, the war on Gaza, more than 20,000 civilians have been killed. Where is the rules-based international order, sir?
This is exactly the voice what we want to raise. This is the voice of human conscience. There is no human conscience. Can you imagine Israeli minister threatened Gaza to use a nuclear bomb? Gaza is a small area. If you use nuclear bomb there, all the regions will be affected. But for them, Israel is a chosen nation, chosen state. No other state can have nuclear power, neither Iran, nor Turkey, nor Saudi Arabia, but Israel may have. What is the superiority of Israel? This is the question.
Well, they call themselves the chosen people, don't they? They call themselves God's people, the chosen people.
All states must be equal to each other. There should not be a category of privileged states or state, such as Israel, then powerful states, then poor states. This is oligarchical structure of international order. We have to unite, not only to stop genocide in Gaza, but to stop any privileged status for any state or for any nation or for any religion.
It's not going to be easy, sir, when you consider the strength of the Western media landscape, the Western political landscape, whether it's kind of soft power influence. But now we see what's happening here, and the world, sir, continues to watch in horror as we're entering the third month of this ghastly, ghastly war. I wanted to ask you about the concerns that the war on Gaza could open up onto multiple fronts. You've got the Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza. You've also got, for example, Yemen and the Houthis that are targeting Israeli-linked ships in the Red Sea. America is creating another coalition of the willing of a security flotilla of all these ships from different countries to secure and patrol the Red Sea. But here's what I want to ask you, because America's coalition of the willing is kind of falling apart. Spain, Italy, France, Australia, they're all saying no. They're refusing to join this flotilla security mission in the Red Sea. Why do you think traditional American allies right now are saying no to the flotilla security escorts in the Red Sea?
Well, because there is a very clear picture on the ground. Who needs security or protection, Israel or Palestinians? Israel has all the power in their hand, nuclear bomb, very heavy airplanes, Air Force, Navy force, tanks. Israel doesn't need protection. Palestinian people need protection. Palestinians in their own land, they are trying to defend their homes, their families, their children against a barbaric force, U.S. administration, and all those responsible people in the West. They should respect their own values. They claim that they have been defending. If there is democracy, freedom of choice, respect freedom of choice of Palestine. They decide in 2006, they made a free election and Hamas won the election. Why don't respect? I am very, very concerned that this crisis will lead to a regional war or crisis, even a global one. This is a problem between humanity and Israel. That will be the end of the stability in the region.
Nobody wants this war to expand into a larger regional war. We all know that the Palestinians don't have an air force, they don't have a navy, and when it comes to the Palestinian state, I've had people describe it as a piece of cheese. Over the years, they keep trying to negotiate for this land for the Palestinians, but every year with more Israeli settlements, that piece of cheese gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And the Palestinians, you know, it's like they don't really have anywhere left. Do you think that the two-state solution is dead in the water? Do you think it can ever actually come to fruition?
It is not dead. It has been killed by Israeli side. Netanyahu doesn't see any even 1 square meter land for Palestine. And no country raised the voice that, who are you? How can you eliminate or how can you invade a country and then show this to UN General Assembly? I was mediator in Israel and Palestinian side in 2009 war, 2012 war, 2014 wars. In all these Gaza wars, I was mediator between two sides. Whenever I tried to convince Hamas side to make a long-term ceasefire, Hamas side was telling us and declared that they want to have two-state solution, even recognizing Israel. Hamas side always said, Yasser Arafat said this 30 years ago in Oslo. Then Mahmoud Abbas accepted this, PLO accepted. What happened? First of all, Israel and Palestinian side should be as equal state. Therefore, in 2012, 28 November, I was with President Mahmoud Abbas in UN General Assembly when Palestine has been recognized by UN General Assembly as non-member status state. And only, I think, 8 or 9 countries said no, including US. 138 countries said yes for Palestinian state. Now, there should be a full guarantee endorsed by UN Security Council, including US, that Palestinian state must be established.
The UN, the global governing body, is apparently so inept and ineffective at enforcing something here that, as you say, so much of the world supports this two-state solution. So I must ask you a question, if I may. Going back to the attack on October the 7th, I understand Cairo had been warning Israel for approximately 2 months that Hamas was reportedly planning a, quote, unprecedented attack, but no action was taken. Now, you are a former prime minister. You know how government agencies interact. Do you find it surprising the intelligence was not acted upon?
Yes, there could be several speculations on this. Netanyahu was in a very difficult situation because of the corruption issues, legal issues in the country. Some sort of tension could help him to restore his position in domestic field. But I think he did not anticipate such a preparation for by Palestinian side. But this did not occur. I totally disagree with the approach that everything started 7th of October. No, 7th of October is the accumulation of a crisis and the outcome of decades-long crisis. On 7th of October attack based on 3 main provocations. One was for several months, there were Israeli insulting and invading attitude in East Jerusalem and Masjid al-Aqsa. During Jummah, Friday prayers, Israeli dogs, police dogs entered the mosque. So that was humiliation, which affected Palestinians, people, and all Muslims everywhere. Secondly, Arab states, unfortunately, This is the responsibility of Arab states and Muslim states. They normalized their relations with Israel, including Turkey. I criticize their position as well. There was a very common ground of all OIC members that normalization of Israel will not be finalized or will not be realized if without Palestine. So they normalized their relations, Arab states, without referring to Palestinians' right and Palestinian state to be established. So Palestinian was not on the table. The message got by Palestinian side that we are alone. Arabs left us. Muslims left us alone. International community left us alone. The promises have not been fulfilled. We have to take our destiny in our hand. Third, this provocative talk of Netanyahu in UN show that if we do not act now, we will lose everything. We will lose East Jerusalem, we will lose Masjid al-Aqsa, we will lose West Bank because of settlers, and Gaza will be left alone.
There are allegations that have circulated that the night before the attack, so the night of October the 6th, there are allegations that the Israeli government issued a stand-down order to the IDF for the following day. Can you comment on any of that? Do you think, let me ask you this, do you think Netanyahu might have known the attack was coming?
We don't have verification of these, but logically, when we approach rationally, Netanyahu wanted to have some sort of tension in order to strengthen his position inside. Otherwise, he wouldn't show this map in UN. He was very provocative in last months because he's a corrupt leader losing the ground in Israel. So this type of corrupt leaders, they can take any risk to protect their own power. This should not undermine the Palestinian will to protect their own lands. There is no stronger force than a nation defending their own lands. We have to respect this Palestinian dignity. And at the same time, also we have to admire the Israelis who raise their voices against their own government and criticizing Netanyahu, criticizing IDF.
Well, when it comes to Israel getting its support, of course, it's got its support from America. It's also getting pretty standard support from your typical G7 countries in Europe and elsewhere. But you also have the entire Islamic world supporting the Palestinians. Why do you think you have your fairly traditional G7 member states so often in a position of opposition to the Islamic world?
Even the Islamic world, OIC, was very passive. In the first days of the crisis, I made a declaration which type of measures could be implemented against this Israeli aggression. But these Muslim countries did not implement any effective measure against Israel.
Wow.
Even the trade between Turkey and Israel, between other Muslim countries and Israel continues. There should have been a no-fly, banning the air zone for Israeli flights. Unfortunately, traditional G7 countries, in their history, many of them, they have a sense of guilt regarding Jewish population, like Germany, European countries from Second World War. They are expecting the price of their former guilts to be paid by Palestinians. And like US or UK, where there is a strong Israeli lobby. But Palestinians are not responsible for any Holocaust or any ethnic tension against Jewish. All people have right of demonstration in Europe. In first weeks of the crisis, in certain countries there were banned to using Palestinian flag. If there is a pro-Palestinian demonstration, it has been seen as anti-Semitism. No, we are against anti-Semitism, but we are against the supremacy or chosen nation of Israeli fundamentalism. being against Israel does not mean anti-Semitism. Being against Israel means being against IDF, being against Netanyahu, killing children, killing women everywhere. We are not anti-Semitic. There is no anti-Semitic history in Muslim lands. There is an anti-Semitic history in Europe who are defending now Israeli side.
According to some people say that there's a reluctance from neighboring countries in the region to take in Palestinian refugees. How would you comment on that?
No regional country really planned any action against this to stop Israeli aggression. The trade relations continued. This is a shame, a shameful action that still I support President Erdogan's statement accusing these actions as genocide. But I really criticize and I do not accept that trade relation between Israel and Turkey. Trade relation does not mean ordinary trade. From here, I want to make a call to all regional powers to implement effective measures against Israel. I don't mean military clashes, no. But Israel must know that they cannot live in this region if they do not respect right of life, right of having political state of Palestinians being recognized. Many Arab countries, Muslim countries, they do not want to harm their relation with Israel, and they are waiting. Just okay, this week it will end. There will be some ceasefire. This is very opportunistic. We cannot apply this. If we want to have peace, Muslim countries should send clear messages to US and EU. Clear message must be, if you think your own strategic interest in this region, you have to respect the Palestinian people's right. If there is no Palestinian state, we will stop all negotiations with Israel, and there should be another parallel pressure to be implemented on Israel by EU and US. And Russian role here is very important because the only P5 member in quartet which has more neutral position status is Russia. Therefore, I wrote a letter to President Putin asking him to, in this sense, to balance, to counterbalance this pro-Israeli lobby of states. I wrote letters to European leaders, to Chinese President Xi. I wrote letters to several, Brazilian President Lula, South African president, because these, to be frank, South leaders, such as South Africa, they are more effective.
Well, Global South, sir. Global South, you know, the SCO, the BRICS, ASEAN, the Eurasian Union. We are seeing this multipolar world essentially taking the planet by storm at the moment. You're seeing all these coagulations, these groupings, strategic partnerships, economic alliances. All these countries are coming together, and I think there's a good number of them that are doing so for their own self-protection and prosperity. When it comes to the war on Gaza right now, it would seem that the United States and Israel, that they're almost Siamese twins right now. They're so connected in this war. And at the end of the day, when you look back, whether Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Gaza, Taiwan in the future, there always seems to be traditional players as part of the geopolitical storm. Some say it's because the imperialist hegemon is coming to an end, perhaps both financially, but perhaps more importantly, morally. What are your thoughts?
I fully agree with this position. In fact, in my book published by Cambridge University Press in 2020, Systemic Earthquake and Wall Disorder, I analyzed this. I think from 1989, after the collapse of, the end of Cold War and collapse of Soviet Union in 1991, from that time there were some very utopic, optimistic future analysis, such as end of history. At that time, I was a young academician. I said, this is not true. History never ends. There will be new crises, and the geopolitics will rise again. And from that time until now, there was no peace. There was only frozen conflicts and frozen ceasefires. This is the era of ceasefire, what I call. And the geopolitical earthquake, which I called in my book, geopolitical earthquake, started from 1991. Until now, it continued. And this geopolitical earthquake has not been restored until now. Now there is a new geopolitics arising. And this geopolitics is threatening UN order. The UN was a project of permanent peace, but misuse of UN Security Council, misuse of veto power in UN Security Council, destroying the basic values, and geopolitical rivalry overwhelmingly coming back. And this creates a regional tension, and these regional tensions everywhere being supported by certain global powers is transforming itself to a global tension. This Gaza war is an alarming signal for all of us. If we want to have a peaceful future for humanity, there should not be superior power. There should not be privileged nation. There should not be chosen nation or chosen religion. There should be only one basic rule of human values. All human beings are equal to each other, regardless of their ethnic, religious, sectarian background. And all states, in that sense, should have some sort of a new consolidation of international organizations.
And that is a very admirable comment, very extensive and insightful, and a very powerful statement to wrap up this conversation with the former Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu joining us here on RT International. Very interesting commentary indeed. Thank you so much for your time.
Most welcome. Thank you very much.